Welcome back to the Foundations of Learning podcast. I'm Shaylee, former educator, here to empower parents to take back their child's education and create lifelong learners. Today, we are going to talk about how we accidentally or intentionally teach kids to hate reading. Most kids do not hate books. They just hate the way that reading is taught, and they might be struggling to read. Reading should be magical. Books open doors to new worlds, they spark curiosity, and they build confidence. But for too many children, reading feels just like a chore. Kind of have a theory as to why. I think it's because of the way that we often approach reading in schools, and it sets them up for frustration instead of joy. And here is the harder truth. It feels like more like the design of a system that doesn't benefit from raising free thinkers. I know. You're probably thinking, no, schools are great. We love schools. They are helping my child. But when we look at the scores, the reading scores, when there's only 30% of kids that are actually proficient readers, it gets a little dicey on whether or not it's actually set up for your child to succeed. I want to give you a little side note here. I am looking at this through the lens of a classroom, but I think we can kind of pull some of these narratives at home because we want our kids to succeed. And so this is often just how we're taught. But whether you're homeschooling or your child's in public or private school, these are all important things to consider when it comes to how we approach reading, because I love you homeschoolers and I'm going to homeschool my own children. And I think it's amazing that you can use your own approaches to how you teach your children and that you do whatever is best for your children. But can I just say that the unschooling approach, where you're like, my kid will just learn to read when they learn to read and they'll learn through exposure of reading. I really urge you to read Proust and Squid. It's an amazing book that talks about how our brains actually learn to read. They actually do it through psychology, linguistics, neuroscience, and all of this crazy stuff for us to actually figure out how kids learn to read. And if you are unschooling and you're not sure that your child, like maybe your child has dyslexia and you just didn't know that, they're gonna struggle real bad. So I just urge you to just do your own research on that. If that's the case, that you think your child's gonna learn to read just by reading, it's a very small percentage of kids that actually learn that way. Anyways, we're gonna zoom out. When children learn to read deeply and independently, they don't just pass tests, they grow into thinkers. So readers are going to question, readers are going to connect ideas, readers are going to imagine new possibilities, and readers are going to see through manipulation. That's a big kicker. They question, they connect ideas, they imagine new possibilities, and they see through manipulation. I just want you to kind of think through the last 5 years of our lives, what the media does to push narratives. As an educator, what I've seen with curriculums and the ideas that they want to push on kids. And so when you think about the fact that we know we have decades of research on how to help kids become readers. And I am not saying the teachers are sinister and it's the teachers that are doing this. I'm saying the system as a whole, the teachers are a cog in, may have a more sinister approach to what they want kids to be able to do or not do. And readers throughout history have been more likely to challenge the status quo. So I'm seeing a lot of challenge here. I'm seeing a lot of, you can't trick me type of scenarios here. But it's not hard to see why a system might be comfortable with minimum literacy. Like I said, if you have lower literacy skills, this is just a fact, okay? You're going to be more dependent on the schools and the systems and later government assistance, less able to access the full range of knowledge and opportunities around them, and you are a lot easier to guide, manage, or keep compliant. By contrast, strong readers have better academic and life outcomes. This is proven by studies that we have done. If you have higher literacy rates, you're going to have higher earning potential, better health outcomes, greater independence, and freedom of thought. So when we see that widespread method that doesn't work, we're talking balanced literacy and whole word reading, which is what we've done for a very long time. And we're looking at the over-reliance on leveled readers and test-driven comprehension. We have to ask, is this just an oversight? Or is it convenient to keep literacy rates low? Convenient for whom? You can do your own research on that. But there is a connection between reading and freedom. Literacy has always been tied to freedom. Throughout history, Oppressed groups were often denied the right to read because once you can read, you can think, you connect, you can rise above, right? So a child who learns to read with confidence is a child who can self-educate beyond the classroom, beyond the narratives that they're being told. They can develop independent opinions, contribute more fully to their community. They can break cycles of poverty and dependence. And this is why reading matters so much more than just passing the next test. It is truly about shaping futures. It is about protecting freedom. I just can't sit here and think, why, even since the 70s, do we have such low literacy rates, and why has nothing changed? And if you do read, and I urge you to read this book, I think it's a super, super important book to read for us to understand the system that we have in place. Gatto's book, The Underground History of American Education, he goes over because he's like, okay, we cannot rely on like the ACT tests and the SATs and the, even the standardized tests that we have to know today, because we are constantly changing the requirements and like what they need to be able to do. And so what he did is he was looking at the military and he was like, okay, they have these basic like reading, writing, and math tests that they have to do and they have to be able to pass. And so he was actually looking at those tests and he was saying, okay, let's go all the way back to when we first started doing this. And he was looking at the scores of people that were going into the military, and the scores kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And he was like, okay, like this is a problem, because we actually have something that we can compare apples to apples here. So when you think about it and you think about our government and the way that we've gone bigger government, we've gone more laws, we've gone more control, we've gone just a little further on that end. And so when you think about it and you're like, okay, well, if I was a person that wanted to control somebody, I'm probably not going to teach them to read, right? And you even see that even back when, in our history of America, and we have, slaves, and you are looking at their literacy rates, and guess what? They were very low because they were not allowed to learn to read. Maybe that's why kids are not learning to read. But let's look at, if we wanted kids to hate reading, here is what we would do. We're going to skip phonics entirely and encourage guessing. So instead of teaching kids how to decode words, we're just going to say, look at the picture, guess from the first letter, memorize this word. You're going to assign the same book for every single child. Everyone, today we are reading To Kill a Mockingbird because I feel like there's something important that you need to learn. Not really. The curriculum just says we have to read this book. I'm going to have comprehension questions that are already prepared. So even if you go off of the, rails over here on something else that you're thinking about, these are kind of what we need to be talking about because this is what the curriculum says. We're going to ban rereading. We're not going to reread that book. We're just going to read it once and then we're going to move on to the next. You're going to disconnect reading from real life. So you're going to treat reading like a school day chore. Kids never learn that books can answer their own questions, spark new ideas, or fuel real curiosity. Never model reading for fun. If you do not pick up a book, why would the kids, right? They do as they see, not as they're told. So how do we actually raise readers who love books? The good news is we don't have to follow the hate reading script, right? Kids thrive when they have both a strong foundation in structured literacy, okay, and rich experiences in reading, right? Those both are going to make us love reading. So when I say a strong foundation in structured literacy, what I mean is like a phonics-based instruction that is supported by decodable readers and gives kids the skills they actually need to read. As of right now, I actually do have a couple of guides to help you out on this. So I have a guide to teach letters because that is going to be one of the main foundations. I also have a Literacy for Littles ebook that's completely free. You can click the link down below and check that out. And this is actually going to set the foundations even before you teach letters. We're going to talk about all of the things they need before letters, but I do have the guide to teach letters so that it's actually something that you are doing that's going to help them to master it in recognizing the uppercase and lowercase, writing the letters and their sound, and then recognizing their sounds, and so on and so forth. And then I do a couple of other things as well that are important that aren't just letters. You have multisensory activities, all kinds of fun games. And then I also have the guide to teach reading. So this is like the very basics of when you are trying to teach a beginning reader, because honestly, that is the very hardest piece, is when a child does not know yet how to sound out words and blend them together. And then, you start reading sentences and decodable texts and, writing sentences, like that piece. If we set those foundations first, the rest of it's not that complicated to teach a kid, right? Because you have the phonetic patterns. I'm currently working on the next level, which will be like digraphs and blends and all of that good stuff. So I am working on that next level, but I do have some guides. And then I also have a course for parents. I have one that's more basic, like the 5 foundations of reading, which literally just goes over, like, if you're brand new to this and you don't know 100% how to teach a child to read, this is going to give you the very basics on where to start if you have a child that's not yet reading, right? And then I have the Science of Reading Simplified. Now, this is me going over the research, the science of reading, and how to use structured literacy within that body of research, right? So I'm going through everything. We're going through the entire house of cards so that you know exactly how to walk your child through all of these things that they are going to need to know to become fluent readers and writers. So if you are interested, I do have the links down below for all of those resources. But you also want to have exposure to rich language and joyful reading experiences, right? Daily read alouds from the time that they're small, connection with you, your lap, your voice, your presence, that's all so important. And freedom to explore books that actually align with their interests. Now, one fun thing, because we have technology, is that you can actually have them listen to audiobooks that are above their level. There are programs like Epic and things like that you can pay for, and they will actually highlight the word as they're reading. Yes, these are great to expose them so that they can actually explore books that are of their interest that maybe are above their reading level. However, you can read it to them as well, right? And that's the fun way that you can kind of get them excited about reading. It connects you with them. You bond together. It's super fun. And parents and teachers modeling a genuine love of reading. If you love it, they're going to love it. And maybe you don't love reading. I would maybe go back to what we just talked about on what we would do if we wanted kids to hate reading. And I want you to think to yourself, why is it that I hate reading so much? Is it boring? Do I feel like it's boring because I'm used to the phone that I'm always scrolling on? Maybe you're not a very good reader yourself, but hey, we have so many resources and things that you could become a better reader, and maybe that's the problem. Or maybe you've just always seen it as a school chore, and so you never actually explored it on your own. But when skills meet joy, kids discover that reading is not just about tests or levels or worksheets. It's just about connection. It's about curiosity, confidence, and most importantly, it's about our own freedom. So if your child says that they hate reading, it's not a reflection of who they are. It's a reflection of how reading has been presented to them. And maybe it's not an accident, because readers are thinkers, and thinkers are free. Anyways, if you liked this video, go ahead and share it with someone else. Give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an update. Literacy is the foundation of learning, and every child deserves the tools to succeed. If you're ready to take the next step in your child's education, check out my website at k3homeschoolfoundations.com for resources, curriculum, and support to make literacy simple and effective.